Well, Saul, what's happening, buddy?
Hey, Jared.
All right, man, jump on here real quick. We're going to talk about big deal here in Missouri, right? I mean, July, they kind of passed a bill here in Missouri that all about capital gains. So I'm just going to kind of throw it to you, unpack the bill. What did it do for Missouri residents here, Missouri income, I should say?
Yeah, so Missouri was the first state with an income tax to basically abolish the capital gains tax in Missouri. So any income that is considered a capital gain on your federal return, short term or long term, is now not subject to any income tax in the state of Missouri.
Yeah, and that's key. I'm gonna point that out. We're talking about state here, so we're not saying the federal abolished the capital gain rates. This is just in Missouri, but first state. Um, so let's talk a little bit about what you said, short term and long term. Like what is capital gain? Maybe we'll keep this high level here and then get a little in the details.
Yeah, capital gain is, we'll call it income or a gain that you make on a capital asset. So think maybe your business or stocks, anything that's capital in nature that increases in value over time. Real estate, when you sell that, it creates a capital gain if you've made money, and that is now what's not subject to tax in Missouri.
Yeah. So think about buying and selling stocks, right? You're selling those stocks, short term or long term. Going to still pay a federal on that. That's going to be a deduction or an adjustment to that federal on your state return. You hit about selling. Let's talk about selling a business and maybe selling real estate as well. But I mean, selling that business, you get an asset sale, equity sale, if you will. Talk about how that works to a degree.
Yeah, so when you're selling your business, there's kind of two ways you could structure it as an equity sale or an asset sale. An equity sale is typically all capital gains. So that might be something worth looking into if you're a Missouri resident. That way, the entirety of the sale could be considered a capital gain and not subject to Missouri tax. If you sold it as an asset sale, we'll call it the equipment portion of that sale.
Yeah.
If there's any depreciation recapture on that, is considered ordinary income for federal purposes. So that would still be subject to tax in Missouri, the depreciation recapture part on the equipment, which for the most part is going to be all of the equipment. Typically,
Yeah.
you don't have any actual capital gains on that equipment piece when selling a business. It's typically all depreciation recapture. So that's something to consider when selling a business.
Yeah. So that's a key point I wanted to get out of you there is that recapture on that equipment. Talking to dental practices here all the time, but is going to be still ordinary income, so not capital gain treatment. And the buzzsaw, you might real quick just talk about selling a rental property, right? How that would look.
Yeah. So when you sell real estate, there's going to be depreciation recapture on that as well. However, that's a little different than on equipment. So the depreciation recapture on real estate is still considered a capital gain for federal purposes. It's just subject to a different tax rate. So in Missouri, that's still going to be considered a capital gain and something you can deduct from your Missouri income and not subject to tax. So the full capital gain and the depreciation recapture on real estate are both not subject to Missouri income tax anymore.
Yep, perfect. So we're talking about individuals here. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about what this does not pertain to as of now, right? This does not pertain to C corps, estates, or trusts, right? This is just individuals and flow through. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, just individuals right now. There is a provision where if the tax rate gets to a certain threshold, it'll kick in for corporations, but that hasn't kicked in yet. So right now it's just for individuals.
Yeah. And one key thing, like this was, maybe we said this at the beginning, I'm not sure. This was passed in July, but it's retroactive back to January 1st, right?
Yeah, 1/1 of 25. So any capital gains you have this year in 2025, not subject to tax in Missouri.
Yeah. So long story short, a lot of planning you can, do around this. Again, this is just Missouri. We're not talking about federal, just talking about Missouri income, capital gains. There's no capital gain tax on it anymore, right? TBD on when the C corps fall into this as certain revenue triggers, like you said. But big deal for Missouri and income earned in this state, and always a big fan of cutting taxes here and there, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. But I'll appreciate it, man. As we hear further stuff on this, we'll let you know. But long story short, get with your CPA if you got Missouri income, how capital gains work, get a little play in that play. So, Buzz, I'll appreciate it, man.
Yep.